junior year in college that I realized I could never be in Dreamgirls. It never even occurred to me. I always sang that song, Telling You I'm Not Going, as like a piece that I worked on in class. I sang One Night Only. I thought, for sure, I'm going to do this. I don't know, like, what it was. Yeah.
So it was always theater, actually, was your first love.
It was at first.
And what drew you, aside from these personal experiences, what drew you to the theater as opposed to just singing or other medium?
Well, I would think it was going into I think it was, gosh, I think it was the lights coming down like this and the orchestra, the overture starting and the chills that I got in the audience. And this is not totally theater, but it was seeing A Star Is Born, the Barbra Streisand version, when I was around that same age in the theater, and that was my first vinyl record I had. It was this big thing that would open up with Barbara and Chris Christopherson. And it was her being on stage as well in that movie, and how, I don't know if you've seen it, but like they all boo her at first because they want to see him. And he's falling in love with her, so he gives her this shot, and she comes out and they're like ready to throw tomatoes, and then she silences them all with her amazing voice. And it's just like, that to me was just, you know, if I could do something like that with my voice.
Now, how many times have we all been silenced by her amazing voice? Very, very true. So you've had an interesting experience in the theater because you've actually had the opportunity to create, to originate characters,
yeah,
which for an actor has to be a great sort of most satisfying part of the experience. You did it in Rent, you did it in Wicked, you most recently did it in If Then. Great, wonderful show, great producers. How involved do you get in the development of a character? How can you inform the development of a character?
Well, it's funny because when you talk about it
because
now,
you're very shy, so I imagine you don't say much.
Well, people think I am shy, Mark, until they get to know me, and then I open my big fat mouth. But you know, in retrospect, like, you know, you have a little success. You're up here talking with Mark Blatt, and this kind of scenario, it sounds like I got to pick and choose these amazing collaborations. But I was, you know, singing at weddings and bar mitzvahs since the time I was 16, and then through college to pay my rent. And Rent came along. I had a boyfriend who was working at an acting agency. He put my resume kind of secretly through to Bernie Kelsey. I got in. They were looking for unknowns, and there I am in this show, and it's a show in its early incarnation, and the composer wants to work with us and develop it around us. So I had this wonderful experience that we can get into in more detail. Then record deal, get dropped, go into obscurity. About 8 years later, Wicked comes along and I hear about it, and I just want to get in for the auditioning. And he makes it sound like I picked these things, you know. I went in and auditioned again, and I got out of there and I cried like I hope they hire me. It wasn't like, you know, I want to do that, you know, Oz thing and work with Stephen Schwartz. It was, you know, I kissed a lot of ass to do it. And even, I don't want to make him uncomfortable, but then you do these workshops, and through each workshop, you know, they might say, well, let's go get, you know, Alanis Morissette, or, you know, try somebody else. So each time you think, well, maybe I'm not going to keep the job. So to actually see it come to fruition, to go through that process, to hang out, to get back to your point, with Stephen Schwartz in his studio, in his apartment, his work apartment here in Manhattan, at his grand piano, and have him say, I've rewritten your opening song, come hear it, let's listen to it, the key, the this, the that, and they sort of like, they get inside you, they get to know you and your impulses and your inflections and the way you speak and the way you sing, and all of a sudden it makes my life easier because I don't have to work so hard. It's sort of the chicken or the egg, you know, like what came first. And yes, I'm creating a character, but it's in such a nice incremental way that before you know it, it's you, it's there, it feels organic.
Well, I remember actually your audition for Wicked, which is because every wonderful actor or actress on Broadway came in audition, and Idina came in. I believe you were wearing green glitter, if I recall, and she pretty much claimed the role. There wasn't much conversation after she left the room, but in any event, you know, it's very interesting, Idina, because when you start out a project, it's very hard for anyone involved in the project to know what its outcome will be. You work very hard, and you always think you're doing good work. But I can look at 3 examples in your career where you actually entered a project, and not only did it become successful, it became a phenomenon. And nobody can predict when a phenomenon occurs. But that happened with you in Rent, it happened with you in Wicked, and most recently it happened with you in Frozen. When you entered any one of those projects, was that in your mind? And as it became what it became, what was that experience like for you? Because it doesn't, you know, if you get it once in your career, you're really lucky. You've had it 3 times.
Yeah, I know that.
So come to my next
appreciate
project.
that. What was the question?
It's being a participant not once, but 3 times in something that became a phenomenon. When you start a project, you can't predict that. What was the journey of each
Yeah, no.
like
You just get involved with people you want to be. Well, okay, Rent. I needed a job. It wasn't.